Hello, this is Lucas. Welcome to the CSS video. In this video we will be going over just text in CSS. I kind of made the video on this at the start, but we didn't actually go over everything. So I'm gonna go over a couple more things. So I have this div made here with the ID of section. We have a h1 welcome, and then we have ourselves two paragraphs. I have one paragraph here, which is just a bit longer, just so we can make just a little better test. Then I added a bit of CSS here for the border, just so it looks like this here. So we have the header, we have a bit of a longer paragraph, just so it goes onto another line, because I will be showing you how we can alter this a little bit, and then we just have a small paragraph here. So I'm going to go over a couple of things that we went over before, but then we're going to go into a couple of other stuff that we didn't go over before. So first things first, let's say we want to change the color of our header. So we'll have to specify the div firstly. So we'll do section, and then we want to target the h1 in this div. So the first thing that we can do is we can just specify the color, and we can set the color to anything. So say we have blue, and you can see that the color gets changed to blue. Now I do have a previous video on colors, how colors work in CSS. You can check that out, but we're not going to go into any more into colors. The only thing I will do is I will change the background color of this. Let's say we want to change this background color to, let's say, this brown color. If we go back, refresh this, you can see that the background is changed. Now we're not going to go any more into colors. I have a couple of videos on colors that you can check out, but in this video we'll go over a couple of other things. The very first thing is text alignment. How do we align the text inside of our div? It's very simple. We do text align, and now we can just specify what we want to do. We want to align it to the left, to the right at the very start, or we can center it. So if we do center, go back to our div, you can see that our text is now centered within its border. So it's not centered within the whole page, it's centered within the div that it is in. So you can see this text is centered from the left and centered from the right. So it's right in the middle. So that's the very first part. Now we can also align it, we can align it to the left, which is by default. So if we go back to our page, you can see back to the left. And then obviously, we can, let's say we do right as well. Go back, and now the text is aligned to the very right. Now, another thing that we can do is, let's say, firstly, I'll change this back to center. Now, you see we have this paragraph here, and it kind of goes onto two lines here. All right. So what we can do is, we can use, firstly, I'm going to target this. So we do hashtag section P. Now by doing section P, we will target this paragraph, but we will also target this paragraph here, which is fine. It's fine. And now I'm going to use text, align, and now we're going to be doing last. Now what last does is it specifies how we align the last line of our text. Now, the last line of our text in this big paragraph is this one here. This is the last line. So look, this is the very first line, but this here is the second line. Now if we only have one line, this will act as the last line. It's the first line, but it's also the last line. Okay. Now if we want to align these, the very last one, let's say we align it to, let's just do center for now. This means is that our last line will always be centered. So if you refresh this, you can see that this is centered. Now because this is the very first line, but it's also the last line, the CSS will also enact on this line as well. Now you can see that the very last line is centered. You can also change this. You can do something like right. Go back to our page. Now you can see that the last line is left, or is to the right. All right, centered to the right. Now another thing that we can do, all right, so I will leave this, actually, yeah, we'll change this one. So we can change the direction alright, of our text. So what we can do is we can do direction, and now we can do RTL, and now we can add in the Unicode, and we do body override. Now what that means is it will just transform all text in the opposite direction of where it was. So you can see that the start of our line is here now, and everything gets printed out this way. Same thing with this line, and then it's the same thing with this line. So instead of starting from this side, our text starts from the opposite side, from the right hand side. Now I'm going to revert that. We don't want that because it looks terrible. Now we're going to go over the text decoration. So there's a couple of things that we can do in here. So we've got text decoration. Now we have to pass in a few values in here. So the very first line is the actual decoration line. Alright, so let's say we want to pass in, say we do underline. For example, we want our text to have an underline. So you can save that, go back. You can see that our all paragraphs will now have an underline. We can actually change the color of this. Let's say we want it red, so we can set red. Now you can see that the underline is red. Next thing that we can add in here, for example, is, let's say we want it to be a double, right? We'll refresh this. And that's because we add a comma, we don't need a comma. Now you can see we have the underline is now a double. And the very last thing is what we can add is we can add the size or the thickness. Let's say we do 3 pixels, for example. So I add in 3 pixels. And now I always add in the comma, which we don't need. And now we refresh this. Now you can see that the thickness is way bigger. Now what we can also do is we can change the text decoration to none, which means that there's going to be absolutely none, which is very useful for links, because the link has an underline by default, so we can actually remove that. If we target a link here, we can remove that underlining. But by default, if you don't have an underlining, nothing actually really happens. Now, what else can we do with this? We can transform our text. So what we can do is we can do text, we can transform, and we can add a couple of things. So we can capitalize it, we can have none, we can lowercase it, or we can uppercase it. So if we do, for example, we do uppercase, go back, you can see all of our text now is uppercase, even though it's not uppercase in our HTML. We can do lowercase, of course, and then what else we can do? We can do capitalize. Now capitalize, we go back, yep. You can see that everything is now capitalized. Alright, so that's the way that we can use the transform. Next one that we're going to be using is like text spacing. Right, so we can add a text indent. So what we can do is in here, so I'll remove this entire thing. We'll do text, then we'll do indent, and we can actually add an indent. So let's say we do 50 pixels. Go into here. The indent from the very first line will be indented 50 pixels, just like that. We can also add in spacing, so we can do not text spacing, but we'll have to use letter spacing. And then let's say we want to add in, let's do 6 pixels here. Go back into here. Now you can see that every single letter has a spacing of 6 pixels. We can also add a size for the words. So for example, if we remove this one, right, you go back. So this is how it looks like at the moment. What we can do is we can do word spacing now, and we can add in, let's say we'll do 10 pixels here. The spacing from each word now is going to be increased. You can see there's just a bigger space there now. So then the very last thing that we will go over, so I'm going to remove these two. We don't need these two. This is how it looks by default. We can actually add a shadow onto these. Now I'm not going to use the paragraph. What we're going to use is the header because it's just a bit bigger. It's easier to see. So if we do text, we add in shadow. Now we can just add in the shadows that we want. So the very first one is going to be the horizontal shadow. So let's say we do 5 pixels. Then the second value that we add in is the vertical shadow. So let's do 5 pixels as well. Now if you can see for the header how it changes. See, we add in a shadow. Now obviously it's very hard to see because the shadow, like, it just interferes with actually the main header. So what we can do with this is we can just add a color to it, red, so you can clearly see the shadow. And just like that, you can see that the main header text is on top, and then the shadow is underneath the text. Now we can add a blur into it as well, just so it'll be easier to see. And what we can do is we can specify a blur in here. So we'll do let's say we do 6 pixels here. Now this will act as a blur. We go back. Now you can see that it is blurred out. Let's be honest, it looks 100 times better now. And so that is actually about it for the text that I want to go over this video. It's just a couple of extra things we can do involving text. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helped, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.